Hello and welcome to a new vlog and trip report, and today we are traveling by train again. And it's not just any train, it's a very special train. It's one of the most beautiful train journeys in Europe, because today we're gonna take the Bergensbanen from Oslo to Bergen in Norway. And here you can see our route today on the map, and we start in my Scandic Grensen hotel in Oslo with a nice and comprehensive breakfast. Scandic is well known to have a very good breakfast, and then it was time to say goodbye to my hotel room, and I took the metro for one station to go back to the main station of Oslo, Oslo Central. I could have walked to save a bit of money, but I decided to enjoy my breakfast a little bit longer, and also it's not too nice to walk through a city with big luggage, so I just decided to take the metro for one station. And if you're in Oslo and you want to use public transport, just download the Router app, and with this app you can buy tickets very easily on the go. And then I arrived at Oslo Central Station and headed down to my platform, and here we can see our train today arriving. And it consists of a locomotive of the type L18, which is quite similar to the RE460 of Switzerland, and of type 7 train carriages. And we are traveling in first class today, which is called Plus in Norway with the train operator V. And these seats may look familiar to you if you've been traveling with the ICE in Germany. These are the standard seats of the ICE 3 and ICE T, but without leather, so they are less slippery like the first class seats in Germany. And later on we will gonna take a closer look on the other carriages of the train. But here we are starting our adventure today by leaving Oslo Central Station, and today we'll be traveling for almost 7 hours on a railway line that is considered to be the most beautiful railway line of Europe. It is more than 500 kilometers long in total and has more than 180 tunnels and 300 bridges, so this promises to be an exciting day today. And I really recommend traveling from Oslo to Bergen, not from Bergen to Oslo. The reason for that I will explain to you later, but first let's take a look at the train. And we start in the restaurant car, and then we move to the next car, which is a bit older car, and this is a car for luggage and for bicycles, for example. And there are also some compartments, but most of the train consists of open coaches. But here we can take a look at one of the compartments, and you can see that it is a bit simpler and less comfortable than the open coaches. And of course the biggest part of the train consists of second class open coaches. Here we can see them, and those are also seats that we know from ICEs in Germany, but they are similar to the second class seats. In first class the seats are a bit more comfortable and they have a bigger headrest. And also coffee is included in plus class. But now let me explain to you why I would recommend starting in Oslo and going to Bergen and not the other way around. This journey starts not directly on the Bergensbanen, but we start with the Drammenbanen. This is a regular railway that mostly consists of tunnels, and it's very unspectacular. And here right now we are arriving in Drammen, and then we're gonna change to the next railway line, the Randsfjordbane. This one is already much more beautiful, but it's still not the most beautiful railway line you've ever seen. It's just a very scenic, beautiful line, but nothing that's outstanding if you compare it to other railway lines in Norway. It's starting to get spectacular when we are coming to Hønefoss. And Hønefoss is the official start of the Bergensbanen. Hønefoss has an elevation of almost 100 meters above sea level. So on the whole journey from Oslo to Hønefoss we have only a difference in height of 100 meters, and that's already 1.5 hours of the train journey. So this first 1.5 hours are not too spectacular, but this will change soon after we leave Hønefoss, and then it keeps getting more and more beautiful until we arrive in Bergen, and that's why I recommend you starting in Oslo, going to Bergen, because then the train journey keeps getting more and more beautiful, and if you start in Bergen you have the most beautiful part directly in the beginning. And here we are arriving in Hønefoss, and there are actually two ways to go from Oslo to Hønefoss. We took the longer way via Drammen, but it is faster, and the other possibility is the Bergensbanen, which is a few kilometers shorter, but it takes longer to go there, and that's why all the freight trains take the shorter route and the passenger trains take the faster route. And before the scenery is getting too spectacular, I headed to the restaurant car for a quick lunch and the beer. Of course you can take drinks and food to your seat in your carriage, but you may not take the beer to your seat. Due to the Norwegian laws, it's only allowed to drink the beer in the restaurant carriage, but not at your seat. The food itself, to be honest, that was nothing special. It was just a standard microwaved dish, so it's also totally fine to bring your own food. You will not miss something out if you're not going to eat in the restaurant car. And meanwhile we arrived at the Krøderen, which is a lake that is more than 40 kilometers long, and shortly after we are passing the city of Flå. There is a station, but it's not served by most trains of Bergensbanen, and this station has an elevation of 155 meters, so it's more than 50 meters higher than Hønefoss, and the distance between these two cities is approximately 60 kilometers. So the railway line is still not very steep, but this changes shortly after we pass the cities of Nesbyen and Gål. At Gål we have reached an elevation of 200 meters above sea level, and then we're gaining altitude very fast, and from there on it just gets more and more spectacular. And that's once again the reason why I recommend you starting in Oslo, going to Bergen. At the city of Gål we have an altitude of slightly above 200 meters, and then just 50 kilometers later here in Geilo we already reached an altitude of almost 800 meters. As you can see in the background, Geilo is a skiing resort, and now it starts to get very steep. Just 10 kilometers later we're already reached an altitude of almost 1000 meters. So difference in altitude of 200 meters in just 10 kilometers of trek. And as you can see, we also reached the tree line. There's still a few trees, but as you can see, they're already much smaller and there are way less of them. And this is also because we now reached the so-called Hardangervidda, which is the largest mountain plateau of Europe. And on this plateau we are now continuing our journey, and here we are also reaching the highest point of our train journey at an altitude of more than 1200 meters, and this makes the Bergensbanen one of the highest railway lines of Europe. Here we reached the city of Oosterhooset at an altitude of slightly below 1000 meters, and here we are for quite a long time very close to a beautiful lake, the Oostervatnet, until we are reaching the city of Haugestøl. And after Haugestøl, once again we're gaining an altitude another 200 meters to reach our highest point of the whole train journey, and the landscape keeps getting more and more impressive. So here we just passed the station of Haugestøl, and now you can already see how fast we're gaining altitude. As you can see, the lake in the background is already way below us, and now we're heading to Finse. And Finse is a very special station because it is the highest station of this railway line, and with an altitude of 1222 meters, it's also the highest train station the whole of Northern Europe, and it's also only accessible by train. So there's no public road to Finse. You can only get there by train or, of course, by hiking or biking. And Finse is a quite good place for a little stop, so if you want to take more time for the Bergensbanen, you can make a stop here, because at Finse there's also a hotel, and then you can do some nice hikes around Finse and take the train on the next day to continue your journey. So that's also a recommendation if you have more time and you want to enjoy this amazing landscape a little bit more. Finse is a good place for a stop in between. But also from the train window, as you can see, you get a very good impression of the landscape, and you're not missing too much if you just stay at the train without making any stops in between. You will still have amazing views and get a good impression of the landscape at Hardangervidda. And here we are arriving at the station of Finse at an altitude of 1222 meters, and it's the highest railway station in Northern Europe. And obviously there are roads, so you could access this place by car, but none of these roads is public, so as a private person you're not allowed to take these roads. So as a private person, your only possibility to reach Finse is by train or walking or hiking. And shortly after Finse we're entering the Finse tunnel, which is the longest tunnel of the Bergensbanen. It's more than 10 kilometers long, and in this tunnel is the highest point of the whole journey at an elevation of 1,237 meters above sea level. This tunnel is rather new. It was opened in 1993. Before the tunnel was opened, the railway line was even higher. It reached an altitude of 1,301 meter. But this is an area with a lot of avalanches in winter and a lot of snow, so for safety reasons they built this tunnel, because obviously this railway line is not only operating for tourists, but it's also connecting two of the biggest cities of Norway, Oslo and Bergen, so it's a very important line, and so it must be safe and accessible the whole year, and that's why they built this tunnel, even though of course you're missing quite a spectacular part of the journey. Behind that tunnel it gets a little bit more difficult to take nice pictures, because there are a lot of avalanche galleries. If you want to take some photos, you need to be fast and take it in between of all these avalanche galleries. And then we're reaching another interesting and important station, the station of Myrdal, because there you have a connection to one of the most famous railway lines in Europe, the Flåmsbana. It connects Myrdal with Flåm, and Flåm is a very popular cruise destination, so a lot of cruise ships stop in Flåm, and most of the guests there make an excursion with the Flåmsbana going to Myrdal and back, because it's a very scenic railway as well. Flåm is just a very small settlement, so this whole railway line, the Flåmsbana, is just existing because of the cruise ships. Otherwise it would have most probably been closed, like many other railways in Norway that connect smaller cities with main lines. But due to the huge amount of tourists visiting this railway line each year, it survived, and it's one of the most famous tourist attractions of Norway nowadays. But I did not have the time to stop in Myrdal and take a ride on the Flåmsbana. I was going directly and non-stop from Oslo to Bergen. But of course, sooner or later I will be in Flåm with the cruise ship, and then of course I will also visit the Flåmsbana. And now we are losing altitude, and it's even steeper than the way up. At Myrdal we had an altitude of 866 meters, and now we're going to Foss, which is about 50 kilometers away, and at Foss we have an altitude of 56 meters. So we are going down 800 meters in just 50 kilometers, which is very, very steep when it comes to railway lines. And here we reached Foss, and in Foss there used to be a connection to the Hardangerbane, which was a railway line to Granvin at the Hardanger Fjord, but this line is closed and demolished. Passenger services ended in 1985, freight services ended in 1989, and then it was closed and demolished. A short part of the track is still existing, but it's just a freight track to an industrial area of Foss, and most parts of the rest of the railway line are kept as a footpath and a cycle path. Nowadays Granvin is not visited by many cruise ships, as there are not too many possibilities for excursion, as the railway line is closed. And the railway line is closed because there are not too many cruise ships in Granvin, so this is a bit of a difficult situation. There was an idea to keep the Hardangerbane for tourists, just like the Flåmsbane, but this idea was not realized. And that makes the Flåmsbane the only still existing and continuously operated branch line of the Bergensbanen. There is one more still existing branch line, which is the Gamle Fossebanen, or Old Foss line, is only operated as a heritage railway, so there are no scheduled public trains, only heritage trains, as the line was also connecting Arna with Bergen, and it was replaced by 2 longer tunnels, so there's no need for this railway line anymore, but it was kept as heritage railway. And here we are reaching the city of Arna. Nowadays it's just a station in between of 2 tunnels, and right above the first tunnel the old Foss line is running. And then we are going through the almost 8 kilometers long Ulrichs tunnel, and directly after leaving the tunnel we are arriving in Bergen, and we reached our final destination after 7 hours. Now to conclude, is this the most beautiful train journey of Europe? Well, of course it is not the most beautiful train journey, because obviously I have not been on all other railway lines of Europe, so I cannot prove that this is the most beautiful railway journey, but I can tell you that it is one of the most beautiful railway journeys in Europe. It is an amazing landscape, and I highly recommend traveling by train from Oslo to Bergen. It is absolutely stunning. After arriving in Bergen, I was sad that this train journey is already over. But I had another highlight in Bergen because I booked an amazing hotel, one of the most famous hotels of the city, the Hotel Norge, where I luckily found a quite cheap fare for it. And it's a quite fancy hotel, as you can see. Like, you have a window in the bathroom. If you don't like to have the window, you just push the mirror in front of it, and you can also close these 2 doors here, and then you can separate the bedroom from the corridor. So it's a quite modern and fancy hotel. I was not expecting this from such a well-known and almost like historic building and hotel, the Hotel Norge. But there was a big event in the hotel, so I did not have dinner at the hotel, and I just walked to a nearby burger place which was called Holy Cow, and by coincidence I found one of the best burgers I ever had in my life. So if you're in Bergen, consider to visit Holy Cow. They have amazing burgers. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. In the next video we will continue our journey here in Bergen by ship again, and here you can see when this video will be uploaded, and the name of the music is visible here as well. And as always, I'd like to say thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider to like, subscribe, share the video link or comment, and I hope to see you in the next video.